the scene of a giant fire happening at a church in Grand Blanc, Michigan. I talked to someone who just got here from South America. It's his first week in the U.S., went to church with his mom. His mom is still in the building and he got out. From what I'm hearing on the ground, a man drove his vehicle into the church and then started shooting and even shot a little girl in the back, and she is at the hospital right now. The shooter has been neutralized, but that's all I know at the moment. Everyone within a 30-minute radius has responded to the scene.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about what appears to be, yet again, another targeted attack against Christians in this country. A story that I cover way too often about the relentless attacks against Christians, not just in this country, but really around the globe. I mean, I think at this point, it is safe to say that Christians are the most persecuted people on the planet, right? And in the United States of America, it seems as if there's a mass shooting or a targeted act of violence against Christians, a church, every week. Okay, every week I feel like I'm covering a story where some lunatic has decided that they're going to target a church. Now, again, I don't understand what can radicalize somebody to the point of attacking a church. But once again, we have another one of these stories that we have to cover, as President Trump has called this a targeted attack against Christians after a Michigan church was subject to a mass shooting and multiple people were shot, multiple people were killed. And I want to talk about it because the suspect has been revealed. And yes, I already know before we get into the video that some people in the comment section are going to say that Mormons aren't actually Christians, right? I get that. I understand that. But Mormons, most of them do self-identify as Christian. So just for the purposes of this video, I'm going to say that this is an anti-Christian attack, even though I do know there are people that say that Mormons aren't actually Christians. Like, I get that. I understand that. But this video is not a video to argue about the theology of Mormonism versus traditional Christian doctrines. Like, that's not the point of this video. The point really is about the fact that this was an attack on a church, and they do self-identify as Christian, and this is a part of a larger pattern that we're seeing in which you do have churches being attacked. Okay, places of worship where Christians are worshiping, they're being attacked in this country. That is the point. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
In just moments, police will be giving an update on a mass shooting at a Michigan church where hundreds of worshipers were inside. Authorities say the shooter in that shooting used an assault rifle, killing 2 people and wounding at least 8 others. And you see that dark smoke coming from that church. The police chief saying at some point during the rampage, the attacker set fire to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township. That's about an hour's drive northeast of Detroit. The chief saying the 40-year-old gunman was killed in a shootout with officers. Again, we are waiting on a news conference to get the very latest. First, I do want to go to CNN's Julia Vargas Jones. Julia, we're keeping our eye on that news conference. In the meantime, bring everybody up to speed on what we may learn at this news conference and if they expect to find more victims because of the fire.
Well, that is one of the key questions here. What we're expecting to hear from authorities is an update on the number of victims. We do know at least 10 were transported to a hospital with gunshot wounds. 2 of those victims, then Jessica, have died. But the police chief said earlier today that they expect many more victims as they go through that scene. We see that smoke. We see how difficult that scene looks. Now, one of the key questions here is how that fire was set. They said there was an explosive device found potentially at the scene that was being investigated. Was that the cause of the fire? We hope to learn soon. We'll also learn about these other victims. As of now, we do know that some of the people that were transported to hospital had very serious injuries. Some of those were children, Jessica. We also learned that some of them have been transported to some of different hospitals in the area. The way that this attack happened, as
Julia, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry. We're going to listen in on this press conference.
Okay. Yeah. So before we get into the press conference, I just want to say this. It is extremely sad that we live in a country where churches are routinely subject to these types of domestic terrorist attacks, because that's what this is. This was a domestic terrorist attack. Now, could you imagine if mosques were targeted as frequently as churches, right? The mainstream media, we all know, they would be sounding the alarm and saying, hey, there's an issue, right? There are a lot of Islamophobic or anti-Muslim attacks that are happening in this country targeting places of worship for Muslims. And this is a problem that needs to be addressed. But because his church is being targeted, you don't see the same type of concern that you would see, again, if it was some other religion that was being targeted, right? But again, in the United States of America, we're routinely seeing these churches being subject to these types of attacks. Again, this is not the first story that I've covered that sounds very similar to how this guy ended up carrying out this operation. Again, he decided to ram his truck into the church and then to get out of the truck and then to start open firing. Apparently, there was some explosive device. We don't know if that contributed to the fire yet. But again, there was a similar story that I covered that I believe took place actually in Michigan. Very similar. Individual rams the truck into the church and then gets out and tries to commit a mass shooting. In that case, you had people who actually were a part of the church. They engaged the suspect. They ended up running over the suspect and killing the suspect. But, you know, in this situation right here, the suspect was engaged by police officers, responding officers, and he was fatally shot and killed. But unfortunately, it was after he was able to kill people, right? So again, it's just kind of crazy to me that we continue to see this over and over and over again. Places of worship, again, specifically churches, being targeted, and we're not seeing the type of concern that we should be seeing when we see this happening over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Violence and attacks against Christians is happening too much in this country, and we're not doing enough about it. We hear way too much about protecting everybody else, right? Protecting Muslims, protecting Jews, protecting everybody else. But you don't hear enough about protecting Christians. Yet Christians are routinely subject to these types of attacks over and over and over again.
The suspect, again, we're in the preliminary stages right now, was neutralized at 10:33:44 in the parking lot of that church. That suspect is a 40-year-old male from the city of Burton, who we identified as Thomas Jacob Sanford. That's Thomas Jacob Sanford, Sanford. Currently where we're at, an update, I gave you 10 victims who were victims of gunshot. Since then, we have 2 victims who are now deceased. One additional one had died at a local hospital. And again, that suspect is deceased as well. 7 other victims at this time are in stable condition. 1 is in critical condition. Now, for the reunification, I had a question earlier about, hey, where can people call to see if their loved one is okay at the reunification center? I want to provide a number for you for that. It's 248-705-7352. Also, I know that our community is hurting right now, and we want to provide some resources for our community moving forward. At the Genesis Athletic Club in Grand Blanc for Monday and Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., we will have services for the community. From Wednesday to Friday, those services will be available to our community at the Grand Blanc Senior Center. That's all I have for now. I will give you another update, another press conference at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. That's all we know at this point, but we do know who the suspect is. Iraq war veteran, Thomas Jacob Sanford. Apparently this is who he is, right? This is what he looks like. Now, obviously leftists are taking this picture and they're running with this, right? And trying to say that the guy is MAGA, he's a Trump supporter. Now, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, right? In regards to what his politics could potentially be. But regardless of his politics, this is an anti-Christian attack. That's what matters, right? It's an attack on a church. It's an attack on Christians. So regardless of whether or not he's Democrat or Republican, it doesn't really matter to me because he attacked Christians. He killed Christians. So you can't argue that it was anything other than an attack on Christians. So if you're targeting Christians, it is likely that his political leanings could be irrelevant to why he actually did this, right? And that's the dangers of trying to bring up politics and what we really don't know if this is a political attack or not. Again, it seems to be an attack against Christians more so than an attack based off political ideology. But again, we don't have enough information to come to any real conclusion about what he believed. But I'm just saying that regardless of what he believed, it's an attack against Christians. So let's read here. At least 2 people have died and 8 more are injured after a gunman set fire to a Mormon church in Michigan before shooting at congregants. Police said a 40-year-old man opened fire on hundreds of people, including children who had gathered for a service at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc about 10:25 a.m. on Sunday. The suspect was named as Iraq War veteran Thomas Jacob Sanford during a brief press conference held by police at 5 p.m. According to Facebook, Sanford has a wife and kids, and he served in Iraq from 2004 to 2009. The gunman, who authorities said was from nearby Burton, was shot dead by officers at the scene as flames engulfed the chapel. 7 victims remain in stable condition in hospital, and at least 1 person is in critical condition. Grand Blanc Township Police Chief William Renai said the suspect rammed his vehicle through the front door of the building before open firing with an assault rifle. As of Sunday afternoon, 3 improvised devices were discovered, 2 senior U.S. law enforcement officials said, per NBC News. Yeah, so again, this is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, I mean, again, at this point, this is happening way too much in this country. And stories like this is getting very, very, very tiresome, right? To continue to see this over and over and over again. So here are more pictures of the suspect here. Again, as you can imagine, leftists are taking this and they're running wild with it, right? Again, as if this is not a targeted attack on Christians. Again, you can try to throw politics in this all you want, but again, this is a targeted attack on Christians. We don't know the motivations behind why this happened yet, right? Again, this is not like what we saw with Charlie Kirk in the sense that, again, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Yeah, I mean, that is political by nature. Or what we saw with the attack on the ICE facility, that is political by nature. When you talk about a church, that's different because, again, politics could be involved, but the target in and of itself does not suggest that it was automatically a political act. So again, trying to throw politics into this without knowing the actual motivations is, in my opinion, irresponsible, right? And that's certainly what leftists are trying to do, right? They're claiming that this is his house and that he had a Trump sign outside his house, Trump Vance sign, that's what it looks like, and then there's a stop sign. Now, some people have interpreted this as saying, well, this means stop Trump, right, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. All I'm saying is that regardless of political motivations, it doesn't matter to me because, again, it was a targeted attack against Christians. And because it was a targeted attack against Christians, we cannot allow the liberal media or leftists to spin the narrative into something else. What is most important is that, again, the victims were Christian, and we continue to see attacks on churches almost on a daily, the weekly basis, right? We continue to see it, and that's what really matters here, right? That's what really matters. Now, again, if this is a situation where, you know, the target was a political target, then, again, we'll be having a different conversation, okay? It would matter more, okay, in terms of what his politics may or may not have been. But in this situation, we're talking about an attack on a church. At the very least, regardless of that, again, this is an anti-Christian attack. And that's a conversation that we have to have, that we cannot allow the liberal media and leftists to deflect from because they want to play this game of, oh, well, see, this is a MAGA guy, right? Even though, again, this probably has nothing to do whatsoever with his, you know, beliefs. If he, in fact, was a MAGA guy, I don't know if he was a MAGA guy or not, but if he was, again, a MAGA guy has no reason to shoot up a church, right? Not based off his political leanings. Now, he may have some other issues going on in his life that may have led to this. Again, this could have been personal, right? We don't know. So without any real concrete evidence in regards to what his actual motivations were, the only thing that we can say at this point is that this was an attack on Christians, and that's the way the conversation needs to be framed until we have more information. Regardless, my thoughts and prayers are with the victims, and I'm hoping for a speedy and full recovery for those who were injured and that are in the hospital. And again, I'm praying for the families that did lose their loved ones. Again, this type of violence against Christians has to stop in this country. And I want to see the Trump administration do more when it comes to protecting Christians. Again, I've seen the Trump administration do a whole lot. Okay, they went out of their way to protect Jews, right? But I want to see the Trump administration step up and do a lot more to protect Christians. I want to see Republicans have more conversations about protecting Christians, okay, and stopping these mass shootings that are happening at these churches. I want to see more of that, right? I want to see more focus on that, okay, than some of the other things we've been seeing. I think that would be a big step in regards to trying to prevent stuff like this from happening, is to actually have a real conversation and to bring awareness and to actually do something about the targeted attacks against Christians in this country that we continue to see over and over and over and over and over and over again. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.